Dangerously close. What's up, my little machine elves? My guest today is Adam Butler, author of Butler's DMT Field Guide, a brief history, step-by-step recipes, and personal experiences from a DMT Saturated Consciousness. What's up, Adam?
Hello, my friend. How are you?
Man, you know what? It's crazy, man. We've only met once before, and I do feel like I know you. I feel like we kind of are friends now at this point. Uh, I interviewed you on a different podcast, so I guess for everybody listening, that because I guess I should say this at some point. Uh, I'm the host of the Psychedelic Scene Magazine's podcast now. It seems like I think Jason's going to try and keep me on. So he said,
If you pass the test, if we didn't fuck
yeah,
him up the first one.
he said next month is Timothy Leary's son. So I guess if I don't offend him, and apparently I didn't offend you because you came over here to talk to me on this
Yeah,
thing.
no, I hyped you up too. I said you're a great host.
Thanks, man. Uh, shit, I guess wanted to say like I was saying, or what I was about to say was on that podcast, I was on my best behavior because it's not my podcast and we can't necessarily just yell fuck as many times as I want or actually can I tell you something I just learned today and I want to just see what you think about this. You know the song by Alanis Morissette, You Ought to Know?
Hmm.
'Cause I'm here to remind you. Do you know that she wrote that song about Uncle Joey from Full House?
I heard that the other day. Yeah, actually, and I don't watch TV or into that type of social media shit. But yeah, no, because he was surprised saying how much, he realized that he broke her heart and how, no, it stayed heavy with him.
I can't believe that he was ever in her league. So I learned from the internet too, and it was a social media thing. I posted something about like just whatever, man. And somebody was like, "Well, you don't even know that Alanis Morissette wrote a song about him?" And I was like, "What?" And so rabbit hole, dude. Like I was like, "You're
Well,
telling."
it's the power of your words, and it's the power of your interactions with other people, for better or for worse. It can have lasting impressions.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say, look, man, if a Popeye the Sailor Man impersonator can get Alanis Morissette to write her best song she ever wrote about him, anything is possible. And I think that's what we're kind of here to talk about. Uh,
Well, it's a perfect segue to say about how important trauma can be, or
yeah,
how to take the bullshit events in your life and turn them into something popular. And that's a pretty common story for a lot of artists, whether it be musical, creative, right? I mean, that's where my book was born out of, was my trauma. Um,
yeah,
and I guess that's an important thing that I hope we can talk about. Is how do you have that perspective shift where you don't take the weight of the world and have it grind you into the ground, just the opposite. You use it as fuel to create and have beauty come out of it.
yeah. I should, we're gonna have to start again from the beginning with a couple of things, especially because this is not the psychedelic scene podcast. There's going to be a lot more listeners that have never tried DMT or even know what it is. So, uh, shit, man, what is DMT and how does it work? What does it do?
A loaded question for a few minutes. No, so just the base of it, it's a plant-based psychedelic drug molecule that's been getting a lot of attention the last decade or so. And I wrote a book about it because it really helped save my life. And that combined with some hard inner work for sure, but it was the catalyst that really got my brain to be wired in a different way. Um, but and this is one of the topics that we kind of glossed over on the psychedelic scene, but I think is really important is what separates it from other psychedelics. So there's a lot of research going on in psilocybin mushrooms, ketamine. I live in Rhode Island, and there was just something on the news saying that they're looking to pass a law to allow for like MDMA for anxiety treatment. So there's stories all over the place, and the I think the research shows that they work. What what attracted me to DMT was the fact that it is endogenous, and that word just means that it's produced naturally inside your own body. And I know that was one of the major factors that Rick Strassman started studying the molecule for. And I'd say if anybody who's looking to get into to research DMT, start with Rick Strassman. He's kind of like the figure. Back in the day, Terrence McKenna, he was a big proponent of DMT. He's got a lot of great philosophical information.
Are
And
these
then there's a lot of
Is he like a 1960s type guy? Is he more recent? Who's
Terrence
Rich?
McKenna,
No, Rich Strassman. I
Rick
don't know.
Strassman. No, he's still around. He's still doing interviews.
Oh, cool.
Actually, so his main book, The Spirit Molecule, and we talked about kind of, my chapter about the miracle molecule and how it's really both. But that book was written primarily based off his research that he did in the 90s. But he's still active in the scene. Actually, him and another guy, Andrew Gallimore. So that's another name in the DMT space. They kind of combined their backgrounds and came up with that DMT extended state. Um, Not that my understanding is they're not the ones physically administering it, but they're the
Yeah.
one that kind of came up with that protocol that instead of smoking it, that they're doing it intravenously, and then they're allowing to push this 6, 7 minute blast of DMT to however half hour, hour two.
Yeah.
Um, but to backtrack, the fact that it is endogenous, that was probably the most, I don't want to say mind-blowing aspect of my first DMT session, because it completely, your sights, your sounds, everything goes out the window, but it felt so natural. It felt like I was coming home. Yeah. As much as all of my senses changed, it didn't change in a scary way where it was like, oh fuck, I'm in, I'm in a dangerous place. It felt just the opposite. It felt warm. It felt comforting. It was a very familiar smell, taste, sensation in the back of my nasal cavity. Um, and then you metabolize it so fast where there's no hangover, there's no residual negative effect, you need a day to recover. It really is just
Yeah.
your body gets a pulse of this molecule that allows you to tap into a greater consciousness.
Yeah. And I
And you,
guess what just to kind of like clarify some of what you're saying too, like it being endogenous and being something that you metabolize quickly, and also something that's occurring naturally in your body. So you said your personal experience with it was that it was very comforting. It wasn't terrifying, which oftentimes people, especially if it's your first time trying LSD or mushrooms, uh, there's that moment where it's ramping up, and there's the terrifying, oh no, here we go kind of feeling. And people get that. You can get that from eating too much like weed edibles. If you get a gummy with too much THC in it, you can absolutely give yourself the worst panic attack imaginable. So just
well,
kind of to
to that
clarify.
point, when you're eating shrooms, you can kind of feel that you're being poisoned, and you kind of feel it going through your bloodstream, and
Yeah.
ideally you're doing it you're anticipating that happening so you can kind of sit and process it. LSD's that kind of synthetic chemical feeling where you're getting injected with this shit where you're like, oh man, like this, what the hell's going to happen? Where, like I said, it's the opposite with DMT, where it's almost like the veil's been lifted of these limiting human senses of perception, and now you can see who you truly are, which is this being of light, source, love, connection. And this is where it kind of sounds like Mahuga Fox, this woo-woo guy talking about this shit. Like I'm not that guy. Uh,
Yeah.
Normally, up until a couple years ago, when my life experiences completely opened my eyes to what some people would consider not even necessarily woo-woo. It's just it's tough to explain interacting with different entities in different dimensions while in psychedelic states that you can't describe. But the lasting effects and the information that you take from those realms are real. And that's why I think psychedelics as a class of molecules are getting such the attention.
Yeah. Actually, I think we should get into that before we go too much further. I just wanted to kind of lay a quick groundwork with, for anyone who's like, well, what the fuck's the difference between DMT and acid? And there's a big difference. It's a different thing altogether. But you have a compelling story about how you ended up trying it for the first time. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like you kind of conveyed to me that you were a very like money driven individual, someone driven to what is considered success in America, like owning a big ass house, having a lot of cash. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and it was because I was always looking for external validation for my worth and my value. And I think a lot of people do that in society, whether it be, well, what job do you have? What degree do you have? What car do you drive? How many houses do you have? Um, and it took me a long time to realize that that's just that's never going to stop. And then combine that with, and we got into this, and the last time we talked, but it's important about how I was using alcohol really to drown all of my inner conflicts and all of my bullshit. And coming on 3.5 years sober now, that's a huge part of my story too. Um, and whether people are drinking too much or using prescription pills, a lot of people are running from the same type of things that I was running from. And I gloss over a lot of the details in my book about all of the crap that happened. And I can list them. I mean, I got a restraining order against me. I lost my house. I quit two high-paying jobs. I lost two amazing relationships. I went from owning, 15 houses to being homeless to living in my parents' basement to, there's this whole story of crap that happened. But my story's not unique. I'm coming on 44 years this summer, and everybody has their bullshit. Everybody has stories way worse than mine. And as I'm sharing my story, I realize just how fortunate I am. But I think that's the point, is to take, whether it be a midlife crisis that's happening around people my age, or whether it be coming into adulthood crisis, or even end of life things that are happening with people, dementia, Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Um, you can let all of those things drive you absolutely insane, and consequently drive your loved ones insane and probably drive them away. Or you can process it, internalize it, putting in the right compartment in your brain, and and almost enjoy the experience of that ebb and flow of life, of the fluctuations of life.
Yeah.
And psychedelics aren't the only way of having that perception shift, but for a lot of people, it's that um, snap of reality, or snap of the fact that the reality that you're living is really what you make up in your mind, and you have the choice to wake up every day full of gratitude and
Yeah.
contentment, as opposed to fear and lack.
I love the fact that you were talking about like putting things in perspective, and there's so many different ways that can be. Is I know guys and the like I used to work in a lot of construction, know a lot of guys that workaholics for sometimes for reasons that don't seem to make sense, because it's like, and then you think that you finally got there, like now you're a contractor, now guys work underneath you, you've got a $90,000 pickup truck, and they're miserable. And it's like,
Yeah, yes, he
well,
hasn't fucked his wife in a month and a half. He hasn't been on vacation in 10 years. His kids hate him. All his employees think he's a dick.
yeah.
And he's got, $10,000 worth of bills every month he has to make just to break even. Fuck that.
And
Not,
yeah, and I'm not to try and like bring myself into, I and not to disrespect my pickup truck. It's fine, but but it's certainly,
right.
let's just go ahead and say it. It is certainly not a luxury vehicle. It's a fucking beat up pickup truck, and I love it. I love it to death, man. And
Hmm.
I don't get out of that truck just with a shit angry look on my face, like, God damn it, I need two of these. Or like, it's just, it's perspective, man. And I just think that's I'm glad you brought that up, and especially it's something that gets overlooked too. You brought up end of life. It's something that's getting way more traction, way more attention these days, and that's the idea that a lot of people, they're terrified of dying, and they might be in a hospice situation, and there's been so much evidence that like doing some work with psychedelics. I think mushrooms are one of the more popular ones, but obviously DMT is out there, and it's in practice, and it gives people a sense of calm. They're like, it puts it all in perspective.
I'm glad you brought this up. And you were speaking with a shamanic healer a couple episodes ago. I forgot what her name was. Marina, maybe? Woman that
Oh yeah,
traveled around the
Marina.
world.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah. She's amazing, man. She's
yeah,
yeah.
cool story.
Yeah.
But just hearing her talk about the lack of fear of death, and that's also a very common outcome of going deep into psychedelic space, where I have absolutely zero fear of death. I'm actually excited about that transmutation of energy. I'm excited about the next um, chapter, and a couple rabbit holes we can get onto, but in some of my deeper psychedelic spaces, and I kind of write in colorful language how I've interacted. I've fucked angels and fought with the devil, and walked with devils and stuff like that. Um, it's it's true. You do interact with all of these weird these weird beings. But one of the things that I interacted with was my future self, what I conceived as my future self, and that just confirmed that this physical body that we're in now is just one of many suits that we wear, and that you will go on to something else. But the the end of life where you think about these poor people sitting in a hospice or sitting in a hospital, even if they're at the best of health, but they're just naturally at the end of their biological life, um, the fear of dying, I can only imagine what that would be like, as opposed to the peace and contentment of, wow, I've lived a full life and or even a half a life or a quarter life, people that are dying young. But to put it in perspective, and there's a lot of work on DMT, like near-death experiences. How my understanding is that like your brain or your body or wherever it's being pulsed from, puts out these pulses at near-death experiences, and it's kind of priming your body for this transition and passage. Um, even when animals, when they're, they're getting attacked in the wilderness or whatever, like you seem, not that they don't die without a struggle, but like there is this kind of like thing that happens. And my understanding is all mammals have DMT, like thousands of plants have DMT in it, and it's just this natural compound that somehow eases the transition into that next state. But
Actually, I have to ask this because this is one of those things. I didn't read this in a book. This could be an urban legend, but I've heard it said by so many people that DMT is one of the things that your brain releases upon death. It's like it's part of the death experience. Is that a fact or is that just
so that, and I've tried to do as much research as I can as far as where DMT is being produced. So I think it was Rick Strassman that said, he found that there were several times in one's life, like something like 41 days or something like that, like after conception, like DMT is pulsed right when you're born. But my understanding is like right at death, if you have near-death experiences. And there's research that um, shows that I think mice produce it in their brain, but it quite hasn't been found that humans produce it in their brain. But whether it be the pineal brain, the pineal gland, excuse me, pituitary, there's people
Hmm.
that are some saying that's in like your cerebral spinal fluid. Um, my understanding is because it gets metabolized so quickly, it's tough to isolate exactly where it's produced. But I don't want to say it doesn't matter. Wherever the fuck it's produced, it's there, it's natural. And this is where I think that there's a lot of energy going into like breathing work and sound vibration work and light therapy and things that don't really force you to take a drug or do something to break the law or anything. Where
yeah.
like breathing meditation designed to induce DMT works. I've done it, and it's amazing how clear your thinking can get and how really psychedelic that experience can be. And I remember the first time that, like, after smoking DMT multiple times and then doing those breathing exercises, I remember tasting DMT, and it was just this like, holy shit, this is real. This is actually being produced in my body. And if you hadn't smoked it before, you wouldn't know. You'd just probably think you have snot dripping down your nose or
Yeah.
something's draining from your nasal cavity. But for somebody that smoked DMT before, it was a very like, oh shit, yeah, this
That's
is it.
crazy. So it comes out of your uh pineal gland? Is that where it's produced?
So there's so much, like if you just look up like DMT and pineal gland, there's so much work that ties those two organs together. I mean, even like the Aya Ra and Aya Horus from Egyptian, science and stuff like that. It was all pointing to the pineal gland. Descartes wrote about the pineal gland, and there's all this um information that brings that back to like the seat of enlightenment, and that's where your I don't know, like one of your chakra points basically before you ascend to like a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck it is, I know like when I go to bed and I'm doing my kind of like night ritual, I can get my body to produce some amazing molecules. And I guess that's kind of the ultimate point is no, is the plan to do DMT multiple times a week or to shroom all the time for the rest of my life? No, I don't think that's sustainable, and it's probably not healthy.
Yeah.
Is this change of perspective only for people that are crazy enough like me to become a psychonaut? And no, I think the reality is that everybody can change from being, as I wrote in my book, a 40-pound overweight alcoholic asshole who's belligerent and mean to everybody to somebody that's happy and content in life. And it's just a matter of having that perspective shift. And
Yeah.
but then you can find peace and enlightenment and contentment in meditation, in exercise, in sex, in prayer, and all of these things. But not
And
from drowning it with booze or pills
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh man, yeah, I want to refrain from saying things like we already said it once, but yeah, I think we did talk about the whole, yeah. I was like, but I don't want to go like the rest of my life without ever having a beer again, but that's neither here nor there. I think what I wanted to get to was the
Well, I want to reference it too, because I don't want to come off as, oh, he's thinks he's better than everybody because he doesn't drink alcohol. I don't think there's an issue. Alcohol itself was not an issue. I still enjoy the smell of it. I still make drinks for my family and friends. Um, it can be used properly in a social setting to enhance and enrich one's lives. It absolutely can.
yeah,
That's not how I used it. I abused it. It was toxic to me. You know, alcohol wasn't the issue in our relationship with myself and it. I was, so it's not like alcohol is evil in itself. It's if you're using it to run from your problems instead of looking in the mirror, like, or even more importantly, if you're fucking 15 beers deep and you're looking in the mirror and you're comfortable with that, then cool. But I
yeah,
know 9 out of 10 alcoholics are the people that have been struggling. It's almost impossible to even look at yourself in the fucking eye. And if you can't do that, then you got a problem. Or
yeah,
if you're sneaking it around people, or like in my case, I would get ready to go on a road trip and I would run in and pound 3 shots of bourbon quick before I got in the car and drove with my family. It's like, yeah, you wonder why they fucking left me.
yeah,
I wouldn't want to do that being with that person either. But that's that's using it in the wrong way. Not to
yeah.
digress, but enjoy your
No,
beer after on,
yeah.
especially as Memorial Day is coming up and things like that. Please don't.
Oh yeah,
I'm not
no
that much of
doubt.
a prude, but
Well, I don't even know what it was that prompted me to bring that up. I think it's just because we did say that before, and you are much happier and feeling much healthier and have gotten yourself back into like much better physical shape, all kinds of things, which is, especially, yeah, if you're pounding shots of bourbon, sneaking it behind people's back, slamming 6 packs of beer before work. And I know a lot of dudes that do that, like I used to work with a guy, and before we go into work, he'd sit in his car and like he'd drink a 6 pack before we started the workday, and then it's like it. I honestly, I don't know how that dude did it, because he was actually, he on the outside appeared to be in really great shape, but I imagine on the inside he wasn't doing super hot. I should call him sometime, see how he's doing. But no, what I wanted to go back to was when you were discussing breath work, meditation, all these other things, because um just a safe warning, and always important to bring up, DMT or any kind of drug use is not necessarily something that is safe for anyone to do. And we had talked about possibly, if you suffer from schizophrenia, or there's multiple other situations that a person might have where DMT would just take you a little too far, throw you out of balance. But, and I'm obviously not a psychiatrist, but it seems to me that through a meditative practice, that seems like a much, especially if you can achieve the same goal, it seems like a very safe way to go about it.
and to add to that disclaimer, that if you're doing ayahuasca or making like a DMT brew, so a lot of times when we're talking about this, I'm talking about smoking the crystals, but ayahuasca and drinking it or eating it is also pretty popular. Like ayahuasca, if you have any medications that are SSRIs or are affecting your serotonin receptors, those affect the same receptors. So, that's kind of one of those asterisks where you really gotta don't just jump into this. And I before I started doing DMT, I had experimented with the shrooms for several months and got pretty comfortable in the psychedelic space. And then I did all of the research, and that's how I came across all some of the names that I mentioned before. So yeah, you really do have to do your research, and it's not going to be for everybody. And that's where actually another name I can mention. Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's been popular now on for several years. He's got a couple good shows and documentaries, but he wrote a book, excuse me, it's called Becoming Supernatural, and he's approaching it from a medically scientific standpoint, where he's collecting data on brain scans and heart scans and how the brain changes when you're meditating and when you're calm. And he has quite a bit of information in that book about DMT and natural endogenous DMT, because it's not just, well, Adam said he did some breath work that some hippie guy on YouTube said worked, or that, some ancient monk said, yeah, you can talk to the angels if you go to the mountaintop for 2 years. Like it's really chemically, it can be proven now that your physiology changes when you calm yourself, when you become present, when you become mindful, when you become calm, when you become,
Yeah.
all of these terms that are just lost in a lot of people today. And then we talked to the importance of going for a walk in the woods, taking an hour to do yoga or to go to the gym or to make love. Or, you mentioned about putting your phone down when you're around your child, where it's like, no, just look into his eyes. Do nothing else but just gaze into that soul. And that's how much information can you just gain from looking into that being? And that's
Yeah.
what people need to do. And that itself is psychedelic. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. To go back to this is another one from the psychedelic scene podcast, but I want to bring it back up. It's the being present. And I think a lot of what you were suggesting that, there's a positive effect for you uh, from experimenting with DMT, changing your life, changing the way you looked at things. And a lot of that is being present, being alive at all times, or as often as, we all get distracted, yeah, like you said, there's always going to be some dumb shit at some point that's going to get to you. But like what I realized what was happening with me is my phone, my stupid fucking phone. And I have a 1 year old kid, and I would catch myself looking at my phone, and I would get I would I don't want to go out of proportion with like the emotion. Like I wasn't disgusted with myself. I wasn't like, oh, what a piece of shit am I? But I was like, what am I doing? Why am I looking at this phone? There's nothing on this phone that's important. Like, like, maybe want to like take it out and like throw it in a river, just because I'm like, I'm ignoring this
But the
this
fact that you
moment.
stopped and checked yourself, and I think that's what people need to do is just every day or throughout the day, just really be conscious of what you're doing every moment. And that doesn't mean you can't take an hour nap. That doesn't mean you can't have a time to blank off. That doesn't mean you have to be hyper astute the entire time, but just be, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, and be there. And me and my girlfriend Alicia, and she wrote in the book as well, Alicia's angle, and there's a couple I think really good points from a female perspective that she adds to the book. But we were talking about how cool it is that it's not just some like, yeah, her and I found a couple people that we have the same ideas, or we read a couple books, and yeah, these people agree with us, so it fosters or it reinforces our beliefs. It's almost like the last, I don't know, 50, 100,000 books that I've read from a whole range of men and women from different ages, from different philosophical backgrounds, religious backgrounds, teachings. They're all kind of saying the same exact thing. And they're all the way the lens that my brain is kind of filtering everything is that they're proving what my experience is, which is whether it be the Tibetan monk that knows how to just calm themselves by quieting their brain and their breath, to the psychonaut that's taking DMT, to the neuroscientist. They're all kind of saying the same thing, which is just your body and mind is so incredibly powerful, and you have such like innate control over your own being and happiness and contentment. But until you realize that you do have that control, people give it up to other things, and it's so empowering and so enriching to take that power back in any
Yeah.
in any aspect of your life. And like the more and more I study this, and the more rabbit holes I go down, the more I feel like I'm on the right path. And it's not push DMT or push psychedelics on people. It's just the opposite. Um, be truthful to yourself. Look authentically at yourself. Look, for the inner questions. Excuse me, the inner answers to your questions, not outside shit. And
Yeah. Yeah,
it's,
absolutely,
man,
man.
it's such a great way to live. Like, not to be corny, but we were talking about this before about how every day it's just all about experiences, and you wake up happy and almost like skipping and whistling, and like every morning I wake up and I say hi to the sun like a little kid would, and like really like genuinely have a conversation with the sun. And I'm sure some people think I'm fucking nuts doing it, but it's like, no, I don't take that shit for granted. I'm happy as fuck that the sun's there, and I'm gonna let itself and myself know that I'm gonna appreciate it, and that just conveys all day, to
Yeah.
take a second to listen to the birds chirping, to take a moment to look at the butterfly. And that doesn't mean you need to trip out and stare at the fucking bushes for 3 hours, but appreciate that the bees are out, that the flowers are blooming, that, I don't know, the smell of mulch, all of that stuff. The
Yeah.
sundresses on the beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's kind of incredible, like a lot of things that you will miss. This is a while back. I was it's when everybody was kind of talking about microdosing, and I was like, I had never done that. I was like, we give this a shot. Like, not really take, a full dose, but just take you know, a cap, or whatever. And so it's just like it's not enough to trip per se, but I remember I was walking my dog through this park that I walk through all the time, and I had taken a microdose that day, hadn't, and I didn't really even notice that I was like a little bit tripping until all of a sudden I was like, wow, there are a lot of really beautiful yellow flowers in this park, and I was like, wait a second, they've been here the whole time. They've been here for months. I've been walking through this park practically every day for months, and never once did I notice that there were yellow flowers, like little tiny yellow flowers everywhere. And I was like, I am distracted. I'm a distracted individual. But I want to bring it back to uh, the DMT Field Guide, and you have a chapter called the Miracle Molecule. Also, it's been called the God Molecule. I want to ask this, it's a two-part question. What gives it that name, and could you describe maybe one of the more enlightening or more profound, powerful experiences you've had on DMT? What was it like kind of start to finish for just for someone who's never had an experience like it?
So I called it that chapter, Miracle Molecule, personally because I that was the word that I kept saying over and over to myself for the first couple dozen times that I went into that DMT space. A couple with some swearing expletives and holy shits and whatnot. But it really was, wow, that's a fucking miracle. And um, the other words that you use and spirit molecule is in there as well, and that was the name of Strassman's book, and that's probably the most, like, if you look up DMT, that term is probably the most applicable, or excuse me, the most common. And it's because people, you get connected with God, with spirit, whatever that may be, and it's not necessarily like a Christian thing or a Catholic or a Hindu or an Islam or even an atheist, like, oh, I believe in nothing. It's a connection to source or self or something greater than, and you can't deny it. It's like once you've seen it, once you've experienced it, there's no way of coming back. There's no way to just come back to our normal mundane life and be like, oh, that's it. And one of the common um, you know, ways of describing these experiences was that it was always seemed to be more real than real. And I mentioned at the beginning that, in my opinion, DMT removes the veil or the filters that are imposed on us as humans, and it allows us to really experience consciousness and take in energy at a whole bunch of different wavelengths. And when you do that, it is such a profound experience where you're getting just millions of data points instantly. So it becomes very profoundly real, way more real. And it's almost like when you come back into waking, walking, life, it's so dull. Um, as far as like some of the most profound experiences, they've really changed over the course of now the few years that I've done it, and I don't think anyone is more or less like, oh shit. But that first day that I could say it saved my life, that was that experience, without getting into all the details, was my entire life, I was always trying to connect all of these proverbial dots, and I had all these tangential thoughts going and trying to connect the past with the future and the good and the bad. And it's just, I was never in that present or that mindful now that we've been talking about. And I would spend literally all day and all my energy trying to figure out all of these pieces in my brain. And then in one instant, on that last, and I mentioned this in the book, that the first day I took like 50 hits and I pushed it to 8, 9 sessions, and it was like an hour and a half of my day. And man, it was, the intention was either fix something or die trying type deal. Um, but it connected in my mind. It was just like, all right, you want to connect your big 10, 100 dots, whatever, connect it. And then instantly there was 1,000 dots, and it connected that. And then it was 1,000,000 dots. And and it wasn't like a voice, like in English language, but it was just this kind of like, haha, you stupid human. The dots aren't meant to be connected. So it was, let's connect 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, and it just kept expanding. And the point was not to connect the dots, but to appreciate the space between the dots, to appreciate the time between the beat, to appreciate that the plan isn't to connect, it's really to experience. And then that I came out of that first day and crying crumpled mess on my friend's floor, knowing that I didn't need to bang my head against the wall anymore. I didn't need to keep sweeping the shit under the rug, where I could now just focus on what needed to be focused. And that's going to be different for everybody. But that first, like, completely changed how I perceive life. And then maybe some of the weirder ones were, and this is where I think a lot of people that have like UFO abduction stories are very similar to DMT entity stories, because You go into this space, you kind of disassociate from your body. You're there, but you're not there. And I've had interactions before where you go in and these entities are happy that you're there. You know, I've been tripping balls before on shrooms, and I walked in and they were like, "He's back. He's on shrooms. He's on shrooms." And like they were all happy to play with my fucked up brain because now I was on shrooms. I was even more colorful. Um, and then there was that time, like you said, that I felt as though I was my future self examining myself, and almost like I was coming in to do a diagnostic check, so that it was, what kind of telling myself, right, you're on the right path, you're doing this, like you keep. It was a very comforting, but also weird, like what, and it wasn't me like with white hair or 20 years older. It was a different level of my consciousness communicating with this lower level of consciousness to be like. Oh, this isn't it. Like, but kind of happy that I figured out a way to transcend my body to communicate with these beings. Um,
Yeah.
but that,
No.
then that's the way, how do you come out and tell these stories and not be everybody thinks you're fucking nuts. And it's like, well, because it's true. It happened.
I mean, yeah, try it yourself. I don't know. I mean, follow the laws and
Well,
regulations of your own state, province, country. Uh,
that was one of the things that Terrence McKenna said something to that effect. Like, all of these scholarly people and all of these people that are, stuffy that, well, this isn't, take 3 hits of DMT and tell me that your whole life view, your whole worldview isn't going to drastically change. And uh, no fucking way.
yeah,
And I jokingly say that like, well, politicians should go on a 3-day ayahuasca retreat and
per-
just
perhaps
to
they
realize that
should.
it's not red team, blue team. It's not you against me. That there's a collective way to come to a resolution of problems. And psychedelic would definitely help with that.
Yeah, it might make yeah, it might be like, do I really need this oil company to give me 10 million bucks? Do I need that 10 million bucks so bad? Like, because it
Yeah.
might make you realize you don't need it at all. It might make you realize you're mortal. It might make you realize you're mortal and you're not afraid of being mortal. That could all possibly happen. Hey, speaking
And,
of
and
also go ahead, go ahead.
Well, isn't it just as a way of too, like holding yourself accountable? I always live my life as if God or whatever that is, and my Pepe are over my shoulders. That's kind of like like I'm always on camera and that I'm kind of being watched. But I also now I know that anything that I do in my day-to-day life is going to be I have to answer to in my psychedelic state. So I know if I go deep into a shroom session or deep into a DMT state, that if I did something shady or and I can't even say that I have because I don't anymore. But I guess that's the point is that I think a lot of people, you can lie to your spouse, you can lie to the judge, you can get away with a lot of sneaky shit, but you're not going to get away with that when you're looking at your own psyche in a psychedelic state and you're holding the mirror to yourself. And that's the power where it's like, I don't want to live with that shit. I know every time I go into DMT, I only want high fives and Adam, you're doing great, not, oh wow, you're a piece of shit that was whatever, scheming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, quick suggestion. And I'm not speaking from experience, but I'm gonna go ahead and say, like, if you like recently like stole a bunch of money from a family member or did something real fucking rotten and shitty, don't do a DMT trip. You're probably gonna think about it, feel bad.
Or maybe more importantly, that'll be the catalyst that sets you off to set things straight.
Or do the DMT trip and learn to quit stealing money from your grandma,
Yeah,
you fucking asshole.
piece of
Uh,
shit.
piece of shit. No offense to whoever out there may have just done that. Maybe you had your reasons. I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know. All right, man. So let's talk about logistics, not without getting too far into it, because guys, you could just pick up Adam's book, Butler's DMT Field Guide, just about anywhere. But easily like Amazon. Oh, Audible. Shit. I still haven't listened to the audio. Did you do the voice yourself or did you have someone else do it?
I did. So that's my New England accent right there. And then the other two people that wrote in the book, that's them as well.
That's cool. I think you have a
And
really
then
good accent for it because it's like it's I don't know what it is about that New England accent. It sounds like it
well,
sounds like
especially like
a
the first chapter is who the fuck am I? And it's
yeah,
like, you could imagine some who the fuck am I? Like, I know it
yeah.
has to be a
Who the fuck up? Yeah, that's well. I'm just thinking about the way you talk. I'm not gonna try and like mimic you, but I'm just thinking of like someone who, maybe like you said earlier when you like, who am I? Who is this woo woo guy telling me how to, what's what? But it seems a little more authentic to have a guy who speaks like you, you know.
well, and
uh,
that that's where I hope, and you commented before about the fact that it is a short, easy read, that it is a field guide, that it's, 100 pages. You can get through it in 3 or 4 hours. And I didn't want to make it this big scholarly book. I didn't want to have all these, references where it was going to take me a year just to write those. I wanted it to be approachable and to know this is an everyday day guy that has been through some good and some bad and some ugly, but I've seen, a lot of different sides of life. And I wanted to project that authenticity where, I don't come off as to say that I have all the answers, but I know what not to do. And I think, that was kind of the hope of sharing the book, was just to be like, there's so many people that, I don't know, just need to if they can take my book and then be interested in looking a little bit further, that's obviously that's the main goal.
Yeah.
But something
Um,
surreal, talk about where it can be bought. I went to Boston yesterday, so it's in multiple Newbury comic stores. So that's like this cool kind of shop that sells still vinyl records and comics and all sorts of like fun swag. But to actually go on Newbury Street in Boston, the Newbury Comics, and have my book right there on the shelf, like that was kind of one of those.
yeah.
What's a reality? But and
Yeah.
it's a good point though, how you can really change. If you put your mind to it, you can make shit happen.
Yeah, check it, guys. If you're in Boston, I can't fucking
Yeah,
do it.
check it
I don't
out.
know. If you're on Newbury Street in Boston, pick up the book. No, but
Uh,
what I was gonna say is there's a great thing about this, and you get into it, and that's the fact that there's not a lot of gatekeeping that needs to be involved in this. A lot of, there seems to be like a lot of things in the world that sound like you know, amazing experiences someone might want to have, but you have to be a rich celebrity or somehow well connected. You have to be able to afford to get down to South America to get linked up with a shaman, so on and so forth, or be, a chemistry major. None of that's the fact, right? I mean, this could, you can pretty much anyone could make this happen for themselves.
No, that's a fantastic point, because the financial barrier probably the most important to a lot of people. To your point, you can't, a lot of people aren't going to be able to take the retreat and to go away and to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Um, and you don't even like growing weed. You don't need to grow it for 3, 4 months and then dry it for another month. Or with shrooms, have that whole process where, to make your own DMT, whether it be the crystals or the brew, is very easy. And this is also where, I feel like as two grown adults, hopefully we're talking to other grown adults. Do
Yeah.
your own homework. I have a disclaimer in my book, but everybody should know what the fuck. Like, don't go out and do stupid shit. Don't be brazen with it, and don't, I even write in my book, like, it's not something you want to make in a dormitory or like in a large apartment complex, because it does smell when you're making it. But to your point about its accessibility, so it's all natural products. It's plant-based materials that you can buy online. As of now, they can be legally shipped to the U.S. And then there's a very simple, with the crystals. It's like a 7-step process that takes, it does take a day, because there's several things you need to kind of like let it rest. But within a day's time and a couple $100, you can make your own batch of DMT crystals, which would last you literally a lifetime.
Yeah.
And the ayahuasca is even easier to make. It's like brewing tea with a couple ingredients. And the good thing about that too is you're not seeking it out from somebody you don't know. You're not being shady and going out on the street. You're not putting yourself out there. You're sourcing the material. You're making it. You're imparting it with the vibrational love that I think you should. And as corny as some people may think that is, I mean, that's very important. You really need to have the right intention doing it. Um, but then there's also kind of, and we talked about this before too, about, do you have a trip setter, or somebody that is going to hold the space with you? Do you need that? I know my first person time, I'm very glad that I had somebody there with me, and all he was a loving friend, that he just sat there. He didn't say anything. He didn't help me like process anything. It was just, I felt his presence, and I knew that if the doorbell rang or if the house caught on fire, he would pick me up and carry me out, or just the safety of having somebody there. Um, so that would be up to an individual, is then where do you do it? And that's important with any psychedelic, set and setting,
Yeah.
the environment, the intention. uh and I have a whole chapter in my book about that too, about do you want to do it with sights and sounds or in silence? Do you want to, is it for therapeutic purposes, or is it for artistic enrichment? What do you, some things that even, and at the end, some things you don't want to do, like make sure you don't have mosquitoes in the room. I mean, it sounds foolish, but like
That's
you start
no,
tripping
yeah.
balls and you're worrying about a mosquito, or like, you put your phone on silent. You definitely don't want to be woken out of a deep meditative trance
Yeah,
because of some
Jesus
fucking bill
Christ.
collector. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
or,
oh God.
so this
Did you
some
know that
basic things, but
we've been trying to reach you about your extended warranty?
uh,
You're like,
yeah.
but the world's a nightmare. No, I was gonna say too, just I feel we keep doing this disclaimers, but I feel like it's fair to just throw one more out there, just cover I want to cover my ass at least and say, hey, look, I don't know what country to the listener, I don't know what country you're in or what state you're in, and for the most part, yeah, like all these things are natural ingredients. You can have them legally shipped to your wherever you are. But the problem is, could be if you just to be sure that you know what you're getting into. Once you have created the substance itself, it is highly likely that you have now created an illegal substance. So be aware of that.
But that's where don't do stupid shit.
Don't do
And I
stupid
said
shit.
don't do
Don't
stupid
tell
shit and you won't get
snitches.
caught for doing stupid shit. Like don't drive with it, don't fucking sell it, don't push it on people, don't I mean just
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
basic stuff. But yeah, it's amazing that that's that powerful of a molecule. And I also want to say too that the recipes that I have in my book, they're not my personal recipes. It's not like I concocted them in my lab or anything like that. They're basic general chemistry, recipes that are
Yeah.
mirrored on multiple different sites. I just put them in a nice, easily compilable, researchable place. Um, but yeah, and that itself is an experience. Just to go through that process and that just to know you're going to set aside a day to put energy into a medicine that you're creating, that's only going to have that much more of a powerful effect.
So, man, I would say, like, out of all the lessons you've learned over the past couple of years, like, what would you say is like just the overall, the most powerful message that you think you could attribute to the fact that you had these DMT experiences?
Can I say more than one?
Oh yeah, man.
Because
Yeah.
it's so hard to
Well, yeah,
narrow
yeah,
it
yeah. I
down.
mean,
No, but I guess it would be the ability to seek the experience, not any one outcome. And that's not, I'm not seeking happiness. I'm not seeking to avoid negative experiences. I truly, psychedelics allowed me to appreciate every experience. And I guess that goes hand in hand with being able to be mindfully present and to be comfortably like here in the now, kind of cliche quotes, but it's true because so many people are tied up in past events or future and they're like I was trying to connect those dots or trying to figure out a way to navigate life, worrying so much about those two as opposed to just being right there present. And then, a huge thing was my ability to have more sympathy and empathy and to look at things from a whole perspective. And a lot of, and this is where it's studying information. So you look into like the Hermetic principles. You look at like the ancient wisdom on how to achieve enlightenment. You look at like the tenets of Buddhism. You look at all of these things, um, and it all basically says that there is a yin and a yang, that there is a positive and a negative, that there is an ebb and a flow, that there is a feminine and masculine, that there is a left brain and a right brain, that there's all of these things, and it's not a matter of trying to have one or the other. It's about accepting all of them and having them all be part of this whole. Uh, and I think what psychedelics allowed me to do was really go deep into my shadow work. So I was able to really go deep into, and I knew how smart I was, how great I was, how much money I could make. I could go off all my attributes, but until I really faced my dark side to realize, wow, you're a narcissistic person. You're using your intellect to manipulate. You're using your words to break down people instead to build them up. And I don't beat up myself anymore, but it's important for people to realize the things that they're doing wrong. But then to incorporate that into who you are as a being, and I don't avoid my past and I don't avoid those experiences. I use them as fuel to know what not to do, and um, the ability to see your life from a different perspective, greater than you, is huge. Without judgment, without right or wrong. It's just the acceptance of who you are. And then from there you can move forward to be a better person.
Oh yeah, man. Well
You know?
said. That was fantastic.
Well,
All right,
because then you live a happier life too. Like, there's so
yeah,
many people that are just pent up.
yeah.
It
I'm one of
fucking
them.
sucks,
I'm
man.
I'm pent up. I'm not. I'll admit it freely. I'm I'm always on edge. I'm a little bit angry. I got there's I could
But
probably
no, no, that,
benefit.
that doesn't mean you should have passion and you should have like, and I always kind of joke about how like I used to be not aggressive, but like kind of project that tough guy fucking energy where now I try to come off as like the most soft, easy, mellow, loving being that there is.
Yeah,
That being said, if I come see you in Tennessee and we go out and some asshole's at a bar and he's fucking pushing people around, I guarantee you want that other dark shadow side of me to snap and you'll be like, oh fuck, this is Adam from Rhode Island, huh? Like, so I don't, it's not a matter of getting rid of that. No, I never want to see that side of Adam again. If
yeah,
need be, that motherfucker's coming out, and I'm glad I have it. So it's not a matter of just, kind of castrating yourself or just not being emotional and not being passionate. It's just
yeah.
knowing when and how to express that. So it's not like if you're driving every day and having road rage every day, um,
That's a problem.
it's not that there's that many assholes on the road. Like you're the one that has a driving issue. I heard a quote the other day. This guy said something effective. If you have one or two assholes in your life, they're the assholes. If everybody in your life is an asshole, you're the asshole. And it's
That's
kind of like,
that's a really good quote, man.
yeah.
I'm gonna take that to heart. Well,
So,
I really do only feel like there's a few assholes in my life. So there's a high probability that I'm not the asshole. But I'm not gonna completely cross it out. You always
but
have to
like
stay,
in my case, I lost multiple beautiful relationships with these gorgeous women that anybody else would have been like, so happy to fucking be with. And it's like, well, what's the common denominator? Adam on alcohol, being a dick, running from his own shit, being a little boy, projecting his stuff onto these women who wanted nothing but to share love. It's like,
yeah,
ugh, fuck. Like, but now it's the fact that I realized that, um, and I'm in open poly relationships, which is maybe another, we can talk about that on another podcast. That's a whole nother fucking part of my life. But
yeah.
now I have multiple beautiful interactions with women, and I love all of it and every aspect of it. And I will never, ever, ever talk to anybody, guy, girl, young, old, the way I used to before. And um, it's awesome. Like no one will ever be able to say the shit that other women could have said before. But it was, yeah. Well, don't be that guy.
There's an enormous difference between being a confident and self-assured person and being an aggressive person, and a lot of people can't tell the difference. And I think in a lot of ways, our culture doesn't it encourages the more toxic version, the more the whole if you're an aggressive person, then you are self-assured and confident, where that
Yeah,
is not at all the case.
just the opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the fucking opposite.
Yeah, like
Being an
any Navy
aggressive.
SEAL or any like Marine who's sitting in the like they're not gonna be the one running in their mouth. They're gonna be sitting in the corner being like, I'll take out every one of these motherfuckers. It's the tough guy who thinks he's whatever.
Yeah, I had a Navy SEAL that was kind of like an uncle to me, but he wasn't blood related. But that actually is a good description of him. He's a very reserved guy.
Yeah,
But
until you need him to get into action, and then he
shit,
takes out the room.
even when even he's much older, man. But even when he was, because he was a lot older than my dad. He's my dad's buddy from the fire department, and he was like, even when he was like 80, I was like, this guy could beat the fuck out of me. I don't, but he was,
Glad
he
good
never
he
would.
is
He
on your
never would.
side.
Yeah. All right, Adam, I got one last question for you, man, and that is, where can people find you, follow you, and most importantly, where can they read the field guide? Where can they get a copy?
So the book's pretty easy to find. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart.com. It's on all the online websites. I mentioned Newberry Comics. If you're in the New England area, just a cool place to head in. Um, my audio book is on Audible, and you mentioned, it is my voice. So either if you enjoyed this accent or if it rubbed you the wrong way, I don't know, maybe that'll sway you either way. Um, but then I've also been giving out free PDF copies to people, and some people have literally reached out being like, "Listen, I'm down on money, but your story resonated with me. Is there any way I can get a copy?" And absolutely. And my email's books by Adam Butler at gmail.com. That's my handle on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch. Um, but yeah, the book's out there. If you want to support it, please do. If you want just an easily PDF copy, send me an email and I'll happily share it. The point is not for me to make $3 or $4 selling a book each time I sell it. It's really if I can share the message and it just clicks with one person, and you know, that's really where the value comes in. So
Oh yeah. Adam, man, it is always a pleasure speaking with you. I hopefully this is not our last conversation, man.
no, man, take a ride down to Tennessee.
Hell
Fucking, we'll
yeah.
chill. Hopefully, we don't run into any of those assholes, but you know,
We
we'll
will.
we'll pray, we'll meditate. Uh,
We'll beat them with love, dude.
exactly. No, but it sounds corny. But how to have a, and this is what like all of my friends kind of like these big burly gnarly fucking like biker looking dudes, and we go around spreading love and hugs and kisses, and it's just like that to break that stereotype and to be comfortable in your own skin and to be. I love all of my feminine attributes as well as my masculine. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's the world needs more love, more connection, more understanding.
Once again, always a pleasure, bro.
Thank you. Thanks for spreading the message.